Together unscripted, baby, that's our way. In a life that's messy, we love and laugh each day.
Hey everybody, welcome to today's episode of Together Unscripted, Love, Laughs, and Leftovers. I'm Dan, it's my wife Jen. Today's episode is brought to you by legendaryalphas.com. Men, whether you're looking for help on health, fitness, confidence, relationships, or just how to take your mojo back, go to legendaryalphas.com, one word, and look into the coaching services. Again, legendaryalphas.com. Today's episode, we are talking about, since we have 4 kids, very close in age, how to deal with tantrums and conflict resolution.
So like Danny said, we have 4 kids, very close in age, and I mean, I couldn't even imagine if all 4 of them were having tantrums or conflicts or meltdowns at the same time. Thankfully, we did pretty good with not having all 4 have meltdowns at the same time. So we'll share some of the tips and tricks that we found seem to work with our 4 kids. But yeah, thankfully they never all melted down at the same time, because I probably would have lost it.
I couldn't handle when one of them was melting down, so if it was 4 against 2, we were in huge trouble. So thank goodness.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We're very blessed with our kids. They're actually very close. They're very close in age, so they got along from a young age. There were still conflicts, though. We're going to go over some of our,
some of our
favorites. I don't know how you have a favorite tantrum or a favorite conflict, but you know, we've had some doozies. It's actually kind of funny.
Yeah. So, okay, I think probably one of the first tantrums after we got together that we still talk about is I used to put out like a little veggie tray and some ranch dressing that was typically their after school snack. And one day somebody wanted the last carrot and somebody else had already taken the last carrot. So they came into the kitchen just dead set on having that last carrot, and there was no carrot. So meltdown. Just dropped to the floor, hands were going, feet were going,
rolling around,
and screaming and crying. And the house that we were in at the time, the living room, the kitchen, the living room, dining room, kind of all connected. So we just kind of looked at each other and realized that they were.
Yeah, we made a motion to each other to go to the next room. Like it was a code. We just walked away. Child never even noticed. So for a few minutes anyway.
We're in the next room, and all of a sudden we hear the yelling and screaming stop. He realizes there was nobody else in the room, picked himself up, moved to the next room, saw us, dropped down, and started all over again. And this probably went on
3 or 4
like rotations through until they were finally
he was exhausted.
Yeah, just exhausted. You know, there was peppers, there's cucumbers, I don't know. There was so many different things. Mm-hmm. But just kind of like let it play out. And I think too, because we didn't react, then, you know, the tantrum and the screaming and the crying, you know, they're not getting any reaction from it. Mm-hmm. I think even eventually they realize that they're not going to get any reaction and stop. Yeah. I mean, it was really
it just ended.
Simple as that. You know,
yeah.
We didn't react. We didn't, oh, it's okay. We stayed silent and just.
There was no punishment, but there was also no empathy. We just walked away.
Right.
There was no reason to do anything. It's like, it's a carrot. You'll get over it. Mm-hmm. And we were afraid that if we said anything, it would extend it. So we just walked away.
Just
yeah.
Let it be, and it resolved itself, really.
Yeah, it kind of did. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness. You know, there was another one, and you know, when we talk about the boys, we could just say he, and it'd be pretty easy, and you don't know which one of our 3 boys it is. But when I say her, I only have 1 daughter, so I know I'm going to slip, so I'm just going to start off. This is for my lovely little girl. There was one day where she was in a mood, 6 years old, maybe 5 years old, little, and she was having a bad day. You know, she was arguing with her siblings. If you want to argue, there's no arguing. You either spend time alone in your room or come down here and not argue. And she actually chose to just be alone. She had a rough lunch. She had a rough afternoon. She had a rough dinner. After dinner, she was the first one through the shower, first one to get into bed. And I was putting her to bed because I'm not going to not put her to bed. I don't withhold positive attention for, you know, whether it's snuggles, kisses, good mornings, that kind of thing. Put her to bed, and I said, all right, Krabby Patty. And it was like she went from moody to hilarious. Her eyes opened wide. She smiled. She made pinchers out of her hands, and she started acting like a crab. I've never in my life wanted to beat my daughter so badly, but it was the cutest effing thing. And I couldn't react to it. I just sat with her for 5 minutes. We talked about how she had a rough day. I asked her if there was any better way she could have handled it. This was after 5 minutes of her acting like a crab and pinching me and making me laugh because I was so irritated. And it just, by the end of our 5-minute discussion, she wasn't punished. She admitted she knew what she did was wrong. And then she had better options for the next time. So I asked her, what would you do next time? And she actually had very mature answers. So again, got lucky with it. Had no idea. I figured it was going to be the next day where I was going to wake her up having conversations about having a better day and better choices. And it was all resolved within 5 minutes before she went to sleep. Was she tired? Was she hangry? We don't know. She just had a very bad day. Again, didn't react, didn't yell and scream. The other three were fine, so she was by herself in her room. She wasn't tearing her room apart. She was just chilling, reading, doing things. But she had a bad day, and by the end of the day, realizably, she was fine. She knew it. She knew exactly what she did. And even at a young age, they're much more capable of processing things than I think we give them credit for.
That's true. No, I think that is definitely true. Another one, we had like a day trip planned with them, and it was a fun day trip. Actually, it was up here to Boston, and one of them just was adamant, like we weren't doing anything they wanted to do. Why can't we do what they want to do? Why can't we do? We had all sorts of fun things planned. We had the Children's Museum. We did a duck tour. Just a day packed of different things. And it was just kind of like, you know what? Well, we've had this trip planned. You've been talking about this trip. You know, if there was something specific that you wanted to do, and what we were doing is something that they had actually already asked to do. Yeah. It was just in that moment. And again, you know, even as young kids, whether it's toddlers, elementary age, honestly, even into middle school and high school, most of the time they're throwing a tantrum or they're just in a mood because they're tired, they're hungry. It's no different than a newborn, than an infant.
It's no different than an adult.
They just, well, yeah.
There's lots of adults that get pissy when they're hungry.
Right.
Or tired.
And sometimes, I mean, as they get older, they do learn how to express it a little bit better, but sometimes, and too, even as adults, don't realize how to express what they're feeling. So, we went through the day, and I'd say probably like halfway through the day, he kind of mellowed out and was actually enjoying and having fun. And, right. And in each little stop, it's like, okay, well, what exhibit do you want to go see? Or what do you want to go check out? And, and just kind of like,
distract them with options.
Yeah, distract with options and, hey, we're doing this because we've been talking about this, we've been planning this. We asked what you wanted to do. You told me, now you don't want to do it. Well, I don't know. You can't have it both ways.
It's already paid for, bud.
Have fun in the moment, and he did. He really did.
Yeah.
Another one.
I think
dictionary.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so, well,
modern children
kind of
don't want to use dictionaries.
But I still had this Webster dictionary. No joke. It was
3 inches thick.
Probably more than that. Really like 4 or 5 inches thick. The thing was ginormous, and I had it from my days. I don't know. So one of our boys was doing vocabulary, and they didn't know what one of the words meant. So I go and grab the dictionary, and I hand him the dictionary, and he looked at me like I had like 6 heads. Like, what is this mammoth book? What am I supposed to do with this? And one thing we really did with all of the kids, if they had a question or they weren't sure on something, we gave them the resources to get that information, to find out the answer. We're not going to just give them the answer. If you're giving your kid the answer or you're doing it for them,
make them helpless.
You're making them helpless, and you're doing them such a disservice. So he was not happy at all that he was looking just for the answer, and didn't want to really do the work. He wanted the easy way out.
Yeah, so. And that's exactly, he's actually admitted that the other day when we saw him, and we brought it up because we were talking about ideas for this podcast. And we said, you just didn't want to do it. He goes, yeah, I wanted you to tell me. I didn't want to have to do the work. Yep. Like, I was pissed. He goes, I just wanted my homework done. So he admitted he was looking for the easy way out.
Yeah. But again, if you're giving them the information, you're giving them the answer, you're truly doing them a disservice. So give them the resources to figure it out on their own.
I think
It's honestly, that is going to help them so much more in the long run. It really is.
Yeah, because when we first got together, again, blended family, I have two, she has two. I instantly went to like parenting, conflict resolution type books. The one I read scared the crap out of me. It said, expect 3 conflicts or traumas per hour per child. And I did the math. I'm like, that's 12 per hour. They're going to be awake at least 12 hours a day. That's over 100 conflicts. I'm going to shoot myself in the head if this is true. And again, if we got 3 to 4 total in a day, that was a bad day. So I think we're pretty lucky with the 4 kids we have. I mean, there was still conflict there, don't get me wrong. But a lot of times, you know, when something would come up, either they were arguing with each other or arguing with us, we would just give them options. Yep. So give them a couple of choices.
Like, you know, A or B. Not giving in to what they're demanding. But like one of them, they used to definitely just kind of cry and just have a mood when they were tired, especially when they were hungry sometimes. And we would say, you have 2 choices. You can either stay down here and hang out with everyone, or you can go upstairs to your room and cry. And every time except for once did they...
He would take a deep breath, and it was over.
And that was it.
But the one time he did decide to go cry in his bed, and he was asleep in 5 minutes. So he was so tired. So it was just, and then when we didn't wake him up from his nap, he woke himself up. He came downstairs. He was in a fine mood. Totally didn't even remember his tantrum. Nope. And the day carried on. And that one still made me laugh when he says, I'm going to go cry. And we just looked at each other like, okay. All right. I was scared he was going to tear his room apart. But he actually got in his bed, cried, and passed out. So, you know what? It was win-win for us. We didn't care. Either you're calm down here or you're calm in your bed. It's one or the other.
Yep. But the choice is really, you know, it's A or B. That's...
Yeah, and, you know, we also had another... it was a conflict. It was actually between 2 of them. And they would argue and argue. And I finally got to the point, I'm like, you know what? Clear the table together. Work together. Figure it out. Argue. I'm like, oh, well, since you can't figure out a simple task that should take 10 minutes, you got to do it again tomorrow. Again tomorrow, argue. All right, now it's till the end of the week. And I kept giving them the option. Either you work together, stop arguing, work together, and the punishment ends, or you keep arguing and the punishment extends. Now, we were in April, May? I think it was May.
Somewhere around there.
Imagine this. It started with May. I think it was the beginning of the month. Then it was the middle of the month. Then it was until Memorial Day. And then it was till the end of June. No, then it was from Memorial Day, and then they couldn't stop. I'm like, all right, 4th of July. By the time I was done with the options, they were punished all the way to Halloween. They still talk about it. They're still bitter about it. But they figured out a system where the arguing stopped. Did they do it exactly the way I told them? No. I kind of knew they were going to do this. I'll do this piece, you do this piece. Yeah. So they weren't side by side the entire time. And you think, you know, stuff like that. They're going to be resentful of each other. They're best friends. They talk all the time. They're up each other's butt. They're each other's best friend, secret keeper, truth teller. They tell each other when they're being putzes. They leave us completely out of it, which is fine with me. They self-regulate. And at this age, we're actually really lucky because when they're home, and you know everybody's out of college and actually home, they hang out a lot. They enjoy each other's company. There's time I call one just to check in, and the other 3 are there. They're all together, or 2 of the 4, or 3 of the 4. So they're having a great time together. We're not even in the same state anymore. You know, like I said before, I'm in biotech, so we're close to Boston, and the kids are all still in Connecticut. They're doing their thing. They're having a great time. But they get along really well. And
they do.
I think one of the biggest compliments we got when they were little, I think we mentioned this before, somebody said, we don't even know, I didn't know you were a blended family until I noticed it was 2 different last names. And this was after we knew this family for 3 years. So that was a great compliment to us because that's what we were striving for. I didn't want it to be my kids, her kids. I've never said...
No.
I never said I have 2 kids and 2 stepkids. No. I have 4 kids. We have 4 kids. It was always I have 4 kids. So that there was there was never that we're gonna, that automatic 2 last names is now we're gonna beef with each other. It didn't happen. So
No, we tried really hard from the start to make sure that, it was a cohesive unit between all 6 of us. But really, what we were able to do, like Danny said, is form a bond between, 4 unnatural siblings, and they're just amazing now.
Yeah. And we wanted them to grow up with the ability to be able to resolve conflict, because whether it's with your parent, with a sibling, eventually it's going to be with a boss,
a coworker,
a neighbor,
teammate,
something. You have to be able to resolve conflict, and you have to know when. Sometimes you just got to walk away. It's not going to be resolved today or ever. There's times where you got to chalk it up to be like, yep, we're not going to get along, and be smart about it and just don't antagonize each other. So
no, right. I mean, I think because we really tried to recognize very early on when they were little, where they're going to have conflicts. You're going to have arguments. You're going to have tantrums, but not always reacting to what they're doing, and kind of, like with the carrots, we kind of just took a step away and let them figure it out. With the dictionary, we gave them the resources to figure it out. And I think, and I don't know if they quite realize it, but how we handle tantrums and how we handle conflicts between, the siblings, it's given them the ability as adults now to not only know how to resolve conflicts, whether it be in school, on a sports team, in the future, or some of them, in a job with a coworker or a boss, or with their significant others. They recognize when there is a conflict. And sometimes they know to maybe just take that step back, or, hey, this is a situation we can do either A or we can do B. Yeah. As parents, if you're doing it for them, or you're giving in to them and not really helping them resolve the tantrum, resolve the issue, resolve the conflict, you are truly doing them a disservice later on in life, because they're not going to know how to handle a conflict when it comes up. And there's absolutely no way that they're going to get through life without a conflict, without a tantrum, without some sort of butting heads. So giving them the tools and teaching them from a young age, again, whether they realize what we were doing then or not, it's really given them an advantage as adults.
Yeah, I mean, we said figure it out was something we said a lot. We'd send them into another room and say, figure it out. Or we'd leave them, we had a playroom. They were lucky enough to have a playroom, so they'd be in there. Unless there was fisticuffs, we weren't separating them. Figure it out. Yep. Figure it out.
Which is very rare.
So, yeah, less than 5 times ever did everybody smack anybody else, which thank God, because I didn't want to play referee. But we would say figure it out, and within a few minutes they did. And now you even see it as adults with their significant others. If they're pissed, they'll be like, hey, we need to talk about this. This is not okay. Like, treating each other this way is not okay. And they recognize when they do it, when their significant other says, hey, relax. They're like, yeah, you're right. I went a little out of pocket on that one. I'm so sorry. Our kids were, I think, mature beyond their years with that kind of stuff, because they were teenagers and 13, 14, 15 ticked off at each other, and then all of a sudden you hear them in the other room and they're resolving their issue on their own. And we didn't even know there was an issue until after, when they said, yeah, so-and-so did this happened. Yeah. A friend came over and, agitated everybody, and, shit happens, but these 4 are as close as they can be. Like, my daughter calls the big brother, yeah. And then little brother, because she's the second of the 4. It's older brother, little brother, and the youngest she calls baby brother. It's hilarious. And they know they don't. We just had lunch with all of them the other day, and we didn't even need to be there. They were just having a great time chatting. Great, yeah. I mean, granted, we had a great time too. We hadn't seen them in a little bit, but it's just, we didn't want to do anything. I can't stand when you have 2 kids argue and the resolution is just separate them. Yep. Well, if every time they argue you separate them, both of them think they won, because now they don't have to deal with the other one.
And they also
that's
didn't learn anything.
They didn't learn anything.
They didn't
Well,
learn.
what they learned was if I'm mad at somebody, just walk away, which doesn't
If
work.
you're not right,
Doesn't
you're
work as
not
a kid.
resolving
Doesn't work
anything.
as an adult. So
No.
I wanted to make sure that whatever resolution was mostly came from them. If they needed my help, I'd come in
Right.
and then try to help them a little bit. That was rare. Maybe 5 times ever did I have to. They have to escalate to one of us
Right.
actually helping. Go back
Helping
and
to
forth with
resolve
them.
between the
'Cause
two,
they
but
were-
very rare.
They were
yeah.
good at it.
Yeah.
They were really good at it.
No. Because
So-
we started it at a very young age. I mean, they were 2, 3, 4, and 5 when we first got together. So, toddler to elementary age, like, they were still learning their own feelings and their own everything, and just making sure that they knew they could come to us, but, we weren't going to necessarily react, but, help them communicate. I think we talked about that last time. Communication is so big. You have to communicate with your kids. Okay, well, if you maybe do this or do that, will that help to resolve the issue? And just talk through it with them.
Yeah, because I mean,
they're
there was, like I said, there wasn't lots of conflict, but there was conflict, and most of the time we never knew about it because if they came to us, we'd say, "You guys got to figure it out." Well, you hear that 3, 4 times, you're like, "Well, mom and dad are just going to say figure it out, so we might as well just figure it out." And there you go. And they became self-sufficient that way, which is why, people say, "Oh my God, how'd you do it with 4 kids?" Well, honestly, I think it was easier with 4 than when it was just 2 for me. Because the 2, they're driving each other crazy the entire time. But with 4, they would pair off.
Or they could switch pairs.
They'd switch pairs, or all 4 of them would go outside. And then when 2 got bored, they'd come in. So they always had a playmate, and it was never the same one. It was just kind of funny. So I think people give us way too much credit. It's like, oh, it must have been so hard. No, they took care of themselves pretty well as far as keeping each other occupied and not being bored.
Definitely.
They were always, our kids were the outside kids. They had a great time. So, but
So go back to like old school parenting, help them to resolve the issue, help them to calm the tantrum, communicate with them, and give them a choice. You can do A or you can do B. Don't just give into it. Give them the tools at a young age that is going to set them up for success later on. Again, like we said, either with teammates, with friends, with coworkers, or their boss, or their significant others. They need to know how to handle conflict. So hopefully some of those tips
funny
and
stories
tricks
and some of the weird stuff we thought was weird at the time might actually work.
What worked
for
for us hopefully will work for you. But I think the biggest thing is just communicate and talk it through with them.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Thanks so much for listening this week on Together Unscripted, Love, Laughs, and Leftovers. And we'll catch you again next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.